jolted happily out of my 1,000-yard stare a month later by an email from my old pal Leon Wieseltier, to whom I'd written to say that I was finally headed off to Arizona for some R&R. May our orphanhood be tanned. Orphanhood was a condition I had associated with news stories of disasters, a theme I had examined intellectually in literature at college and beyond. It's one of the biggies, running through most of Melville, among others, and right down the middle of the great American novel, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I'm an only child, albeit encompassed and generously loved by an abundance of relatives, 49 first cousins on the Buckley side alone. Still, I have no sibling with whom to share my orphanhood, so perhaps the experience is more acutely felt. Only children often have more intense, or at least more tightly focused relationships with their parents than children of larger families. This was, at any rate, my experience. I don't know that I have anything particularly useful, much less profound, to impart about the business of losing one's parents, other than this account of how it went in my case. I doubt you'll be stunned to hear that it has a somewhat dampening effect on one's general felicity and inclination to humor. I recall, on entering the vestibule of Leo P. Gallagher & Son Funeral Home the first time after Mum died, seeing a table stacked with pamphlets with titles like Losing a Loved One or The Grieving Process, illustrated with flowers and celestial sunbeams. As a satirist, which is to say someone who makes raspberries at the cosmos, my inclination is to parody. Okay, they're dead, deal with it. Or, why it's going to cost you $7,000 to cremate Mummy. But standing there with my grief-stricken father, the banal suddenly didn't seem quite so silly or in need of a kick in the rear end. And believe me, I'm a veteran chortler over Oscar Wilde's line, "It would require a heart of stone not to laugh at the death of little Nell." Right after JFK was shot, Mary McGrory said to Daniel Patrick Moynihan, "We'll never laugh again," to which Moynihan responded, "Mary, we'll laugh again, but we'll never be young again." It occurs to me that Moynihan's reply brushes up against the nut of the orphanhood thing, as my former boss, George H.W. Bush, might put it, namely, the accompanying realization that you're next. With the death of the second parent, one steps, or is not so gently nudged, across the threshold into the green room, to the river Styx. One of my early memories, age 5, is of being in bed with my parents and being awoken in the middle of the night by the ringing of the phone. A great commotion of grown-ups followed. Mom going down to make coffee, Pop hunched over the phone, speaking in grave, urgent tones. Of course, I found it all exciting and eventful and hoped it would involve, with any luck, a reprieve from school that day. "What is it?" I asked Mom. "Pop's father has died, darling." Apart from being in the car when she drove over the family Cocker Spaniel, this was my first brush with death. Then, an even half-century later, the phone rang again with the news that my father had died. In the Zen koan, the noble lord sends word throughout the land offering a huge reward to anyone who can distill for him in poetry the definition of happiness. This was in the days before Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. A monk duly shuffled in and handed the nobleman a poem that read in its entirety, "Grandfather dies, father dies, son dies." His lordship, having had in mind something a bit more, shall we say, upbeat, unsheathes his sword and is about to lop off the head of the impertinent divine. The monk says, in words to this effect, "Dude, chill. This is the definition of perfect happiness, that no father should outlive his son." At this, his lordship nods, or more probably, after the fashion of Kurosawa's 16th century warlords, grunts emphatically, and hands the monk a sack of gold. I'm sure the story reads more inspiringly in the original medieval Japanese, brush-painted on a silk scroll, but it's a nifty story, even as I now confront the fact that I have moved to the bottom line. My son, William Connor